Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here today. My name is Sudhakar Nuthalapati, and I'm going to join you from JNTU as part of the AI in the New Era series. Today, I would like to talk to you about something that I believe is one of the most important and often underestimated operational challenges facing enterprise marketing organizations right now. And that challenge is this: how do you actually keep up with the explosive demand for content across every channel, every audience, every region without breaking your teams, your budget, and your brand? Now, the instinct for most organizations is to solve this by buying more tools, as is often the case. A plugin here, a SaaS product there, you know, everything that you have seen as part of your day to day. But what I want to argue today is that the answer may not really lie in buying more tools. The answer is rethinking your entire content operation as a supply chain, and then making that supply chain intelligent enough using AI. Over the next 25 minutes, I'm going to talk to you what exactly that means, what the architecture looks like, and how AI fits in every stage, and most importantly, how you can start building this in your own organization. So let's dive into it. Okay, now I guess as always, let us start by understanding the problem. Because if you do not get the problem right, none of the solutions will land. There are three forces converging on enterprise marketing teams right now, and together they are creating a level of pressure that traditional content operations simply cannot withstand. The first force obviously is the volume pressure. The sheer amount of content that marketing teams are expected to produce has exploded over the past few years. We are not talking about a handful of campaign assets anymore. We are talking about thousands of assets per campaign across web, email, social media, paid advertising, print, partner portals, in-store displays, and whatnot. Teams that were producing a few hundred assets per year are now being asked to produce hundreds per week. And the expectation is that the quality stays the same, obviously, or gets better even as the volume goes up. The second force is personalization at scale. It is no longer enough to create one version of an asset and push it out everywhere. Your customers in Tokyo expect a different experience than your customers in Berlin or San Francisco. They expect locally relevant, culturally appropriate, brand consistent content, and they expect it simultaneously. This is not just a creative challenge, it is fundamentally an operational challenge. You need systems and workflows that can produce and manage dozens or even hundreds of asset variants without everything falling apart. And the third force is operational fragmentation. Most enterprise organizations have accumulated over the years a patchwork of disconnected tools and processes. There is a file share here, a project management tool there, approvals happening in email threads, creative reviews happening in a third party platform. Every time you have a manual handoff between one system and another, that's the place where things slow down. Errors creep in, where assets go off brand, where nobody is quite sure what the current version is. So when you put these forces together, more volume, more personalization, more fragmentation, you get content bottlenecks. And then content bottlenecks are not just a marketing problem, they become business bottlenecks. Campaigns launch late, revenue gets delayed, brand inconsistencies damage customer trust, and teams burn out. This is the problem that a content supply chain is designed to solve. Now, having said that, I guess let us understand what exactly do we mean by a content supply chain. Let me give you a mental model that makes it very concrete. Think of a physical supply chain like the kind that gets the product from a factory floor to a store shelf. Raw materials come in, they move through defined stages: manufacturing, quality control, packaging, distribution, and finished goods go out the other end. Every stage is connected, measured, and optimized. A content supply chain works exactly the same way. The raw materials are your briefs, your brand guidelines, your creative assets, your data. The factory floor is your creative and marketing teams. And then the finished goods are the approved on-brand assets delivered to every channel your business needs to reach. Now, the framework that we are talking about has, 4 stages. The first is plan. This is where you define what content is needed, who it is for, what channels it needs to reach, and when it needs to be live. Second stage is create. This is where the actual creative work happens, where the assets are designed, written, produced, and refined. The third stage is govern. This is where you ensure that everything is on brand, legally compliant, rights cleared, and properly versioned. And the fourth stage is distribute. This is where the approved assets get delivered to every channel in the right format at the right time. Every piece of content your organization produces should flow through all 4 stages in a measurable, repeated way. And when any of these stages is disconnected, manual or ad hoc, you get exactly the kind of bottlenecks we talked about. The goal of AI powered content supply chain is to connect all these stages into one seamless, intelligent, automated flow. So let us talk about what are we going to cover for the rest of our time together. First, we will look at the architecture of an AI-ready DAM ecosystem, what the components are, how do they connect. Then we will talk about workflow integration, specifically how to connect intake, collaboration, and approvals into one automated flow. After that, we will cover governance, obviously very important subject, and operating models, how to build control in the system without slowing teams down. We will discuss how to measure impact with a practical KPI framework. And finally, we will wrap up with the architectural best practices and concrete next steps you can take back to your organization. Let us start with the platform. Okay, the AI-ready DAM ecosystem. When I say AI-ready DAM ecosystem, I want to be very clear about what I mean, because there is a very critical distinction. A modern DAM ecosystem is not a single tool. It is not a file repository where assets go and sit in folders and never get found again. A modern DAM ecosystem is an integrated platform architecture that connects every single stage of the content lifecycle, from the moment somebody has an idea for a piece of content all the way to when that content is live on a website, in an email, on a billboard, or in an app. In the Adobe ecosystem, which is what I will be using as our reference architecture today, this means 5 core components working together. The first is Adobe Workfront. This is your work management layer. This is where the content requests come in, where tasks get assigned, where timelines are tracked, and where the operational status of every project is visible. Think of it as the command center for your content supply chain. The second is Adobe Assets, also known as AM Assets. This is the central asset repository and is where AI really starts to make a difference. When assets are uploaded to Adobe Assets, AI automatically generates metadata, tags, descriptions, and classifications, making every asset discoverable without someone manually filling out a metadata form. The third component is dynamic media. This is your automated rendition engine. You upload one master asset and dynamic media generates every size, format, crop, and resolution you need for every channel automatically. No designer has to sit there and export 12 versions of the same banner. Then you have Brand Portal and Content Hub. These are your governed distribution channels. Brand Portal provides control access for external partners and agencies. Content Hub provides self-service discovery for internal teams. So a regional marketer in Asia can find the exact approved asset they need without emailing someone in the headquarters and waiting for days. The key insight here is that each of these components is valuable in its own, but the real power comes from integration. When they are connected into a single flow, workfront to assets to dynamic media to brand portal and content hub, you have a true supply chain. That's what turns your dam from a filing cabinet into an intelligent, automated content engine. Moving on to the next slide. Now, how do the components connect and work together? Let me make the flow concrete for you by walking through how these handoffs actually work. A content request enters the system through Workfront. The brief is captured, tasks are assigned, and then the project is tracked. One of the creative team produces the asset. It is stored in Adobe Assets where AI immediately tags it, classifies it, and then makes it searchable. From there, Dynamic Media picks up the approved master asset and automatically generates all the renditions needed for different channels: web, mobile, email, social, print. Brand Portal then distributes governed versions to the teams, agencies, and partners who need them. And Content Hub makes everything discoverable and reusable so that the next time someone needs a similar asset, they find the existing one instead of creating a new one from scratch. Now, here is what is critical. Each of these handoffs is automated and auditable. There is no one manually exporting a Photoshop file, resizing it 5 times in 5 different dimensions, uploading it to 3 different content management systems, and then emailing a download link to the regional team. The entire chain of manual work, which in most organizations takes days, happens automatically through the platform. This is where organizations recover enormous amounts of cycle time. We have seen teams go from a 2 week production cycle for a campaign asset set down to 3 days, simply by eliminating the manual handoffs between these stages. Now, moving on to the next slide, we will talk about workflow integration from intake to approval. Let us zoom into the upstream part of the supply chain, intake to approval, because in my experience, this is where the most organizations lose the most time, and it is also where the fixes are most often the simplest, thankfully. And here is the pattern I've seen over and over again in enterprise marketing teams. Someone sends a Slack message or an email, hey, we need a banner for the new product launch. Creative team gets the message, but it is missing, half of the information they need. What size, what channel, what is the messaging, who is the audience, what's the deadline, and it is almost always a round of back and forth just to clarify the brief. And then you're losing valuable time over that. Probably takes 2 or 3 days to nail down the end-to-end requirements. Then the creative work gets done, and then the finished asset sits in someone's inbox waiting for approval for another 2 to 3 days because the approver didn't know it was coming, or they were not sure if it is their turn, or they're waiting for legal to sign off first. Adobe Workfront solves this with 3 mechanisms that, when combined, dramatically compress the entire cycle. First, structured intake. Instead of ad hoc emails and Slack messages, every content comes through a standardized intake form. The form captures everything the creative team needs upfront: audience, channel, dimensions, messaging framework, brand guidelines, due date, and whatnot. No more incomplete briefs. No more back and forth just to understand what's being asked for. Second, parallel collaboration. In a traditional workflow, reviews happen sequentially. Creative finishes, legal reviews, marketing reviews, then executive signs off. Each step waits for the previous one. With Workfront, creative, legal, compliance, and marketing can all review the provide feedback simultaneously. You're not waiting for legal to finish before marketing can take a look at it. Everyone works in the same workspace at the same time. Saves a lot of valuable time. Third, the automated approvals. When the asset is ready for review, rule-based routing sends it to the right approvers automatically based on asset type, region, campaign, or whatever criteria you define. No one has to chase anyone. No one has to send follow-up emails. When the last approver signs off, the asset automatically flows into the dam, tagged and ready for distribution. This alone, just fixing the intake to approval workflow, typically compresses production cycles by 30 to 50%. That's not a small improvement. That's the difference between launching on time and launching late in most of the cases. Now, what everybody is probably waiting for. Let's talk about where artificial intelligence really reshapes the content supply chain. And then I would like to go through four specific areas where AI has the biggest and most practical impact. The first area is smart metadata and tagging. This may sound mundane, but it is actually foundational for everything else. When an asset lands in the DAM, AI automatically generates descriptive tags, keywords, color profiles, scene descriptions, sentiment classifications, all without anyone manually typing metadata into a form. Now, you may be wondering, why does this matter so much? Because discoverability is the single biggest factor in whether assets get reused or whether they get recreated from scratch. If people cannot find what already exists, they will create it again, wasting time, money, and creative energy. AI powered tagging enables every asset findable the moment it enters the system. The second area is automated rendition. You upload one master asset, say a hint or banner for a project launch, and Dynamic Media uses AI driven smart cropping and formatting to generate every variant you need. Social media cards, email headers, mobile banners, in app messages, print ready files, all generated automatically from that single master. You are not talking to a designer to manually export 12 versions of the same image. That work happens instantly at machine speed. The third area is intelligent recommendations. When a creator or marketer starts making a new project, the system proactively surfaces existing approved assets to match the brief. Maybe there is an image from previous campaign that fits perfectly. Maybe there is an approved headline variant that can be reused. AI makes these recommendations automatically, which dramatically increases reuse rates and saves creative teams from spending hours searching through folders or reinventing content that already exists in the system. And the fourth area, one very important one, is the governance automation. This is the one that gets often overlooked, unfortunately, but it is incredibly important. AI can automatically flag assets with expiring usage rights right before they reach distribution, so you don't accidentally publish an image after the license has lapsed. It can catch brand violations, wrong logo version, off palette colors, unapproved copy before the asset even makes it live. It can also identify duplicate assets across that are cluttering the repository. All of this used to require manual audits earlier, someone spending hours reviewing assets one by one. Now it is continuous, automatic, and proactive. The common thread across all these areas is the same principle. AI handles the repetitive, high volume, detail oriented work so that your human team can focus on what they are best at, which is strategy, creativity, and storytelling. Now, let us talk a bit about distribution, delivering the right asset to where it belongs. Once an asset is approved and sitting in the DAM, the next challenge is getting it to every channel in the right format. And this is where many organizations still have enormous amounts of manual work hiding in their processes. Dynamic media and content hub work together here as what I call an intelligent distribution layer. The operating model is elegantly simple. One master asset in, infinite renditions out. The system delivers responsive images and video across web, mobile, and print, automatically adapting to the requirements of each channel. It generates channel-specific crops, formats, and resolutions on demand. You are not storing 50 versions of the same image in your DAM, each manually exported for a different channel. You store one, and then the system generates whatever is needed whenever it is needed. It also serves localization ready asset variants to the regional teams. So your team in Germany gets the German localized version, your team in Japan gets the Japanese version, all from the single master asset, all governed by the same approval workflow. All of this is delivered through a content delivery network, which also helps with global performance at scale. Your website in Singapore loads just as fine as your website in New York. Now, think about what this replaces in a traditional workflow. In most organizations, what happens after an asset is approved? A designer manually exports it into 5 different sizes. Someone uploads each version in different CMS. Someone emails it to the regional marketing office. Someone puts a copy on a shared drive. 3 weeks later, half of the organization is using an outdated version because nobody knows, who has shared the latest one. That entire workflow, all of that manual exporting, uploading, emailing, and hoping collapses into a single automated distribution layer. This is not a small efficiency gain, this is a fundamental change in how content reaches the market. Continuing, the earlier aspect that we briefly touched upon, content operations and governance. There is a very common objection whenever we talk about automation in content operations, and then it goes something like this: if we do automate everything, we'll lose control. Things will go out without being reviewed, brand standards will slip, and we'll have compliance problems. I would like to address this question because the reality is exactly the opposite, in my opinion. Governance that is embedded into the platform is more consistent, more reliable, and comprehensive than governance that depends on humans chasing each other over email. Let me explain what I mean with 4 specific pillars. The first pillar is role-based access. Permissions are aligned to a function, so a regional marketer can access approved final assets, but they cannot access raw creative files that are still in review. A partner agency can download assets that have been cleared for their use, but they cannot see assets intended for other channels. Everyone has access to exactly what they need, no more, no less. The second pillar is rights management. The system automatically tracks usage rights and expiration dates for every asset. When a license is about to expire, the system flags it. When a license does expire, the system restricts the asset. It can no longer be distributed. This dramatically reduces legal risk because you are not relying on someone remembering to check a spreadsheet to see if a stock photo license is still valid. The third pillar is version control. There is one source of truth for every asset. No one is accidentally using last quarter's logo. No one is distributing an unapproved draft that someone saved to a shared drive. The DAM is a single authoritative source and the system enforces that. And the fourth and final pillar is audit trails. Every action, every upload, download, approval, edit, distribution is logged. This is critical for regulated industries, but it's also valuable to any industry or organization that needs accountability and process visibility. The key mindset shift I want to leave you with on the slide is that governance is not a gate that you pass through at the end of the process. It is woven into the fabric of the system itself. It runs continuously, silently and in the background. And paradoxically, it actually accelerates teams because people are not wasting second guessing whether an asset is approved, whether the rights are current, or whether they have the latest version. The system tells them. Now, this is the slide that I personally get most excited about because it addresses what I think is the biggest opportunity in modern content operations. Traditionally, personalization has a linear cost curve. If you want to personalize content for 10 audience segments, you need roughly 10 times the work. 20 segments, 20 times. More personalization has always meant more people, more time, and more money. And because of these constraints, some organizations personalized for less than what they know they should. An AI-powered content supply chain fundamentally breaks this relationship. It enables exponential, more personalized content with the same team or even a smaller one. The bigger question is how. Let us talk through the mechanics. The key is a modular content architecture. Instead of creating a finished monolithic asset. For every audience segment, you create approved components, individual building blocks like headlines, images, call to action, body copy, and layout templates. Each of these components is reviewed and approved once. Then, at delivery time, the system dynamically assembles these components into finished experiences based on audience, channel, language, region, or any other variable you define. The assembly happens automatically in real time at the point of delivery. AI driven variant generation scales this across languages and regions. You define the base content and the system generates localized and segment specific variants, all within the guardrails that you've established through your governance framework. And because the individual components are pre approved, you are not running every possible combination through a full review cycle. You've already governed the building blocks. The assembly is just recombination and it is automated. This is what takes you from producing 50 personalized assets per campaign to producing 500 or 5000 without adding headcount. This is definitely not incremental improvement. That's a fundamental different operating model for marketing. Now, I think having said all that is possible, we would also like to know how do we measure, you know, the improvements that have been going on. So, and obviously we cannot improve what we cannot measure. So, one of the mistakes that I see organizations do is invest in content supply chain but do not really set up a way to measure. So these slides talk about some of the metrics that I would recommend tracking from day one. The first metric is production cycle time. This is the primary velocity metric. It could be a number that kind of varies over time, but good to keep in mind and track over the period. The second metric is asset reuse rate. What percentage of assets that your organization publishes are existing assets being reused versus net new assets created from scratch. The third metric is manual handoff count. Go through your content workflow and count how many steps require a human being to manually move something from one system to another, export a file, upload it somewhere, send an email, fill a form, etc. Each one of those handoffs is a candidate for automation. Track this number and it should be trending down. And the fourth metric is cross-functional visibility. Can every stakeholder, creative, marketing, legal, leadership see real-time status of every asset currently in flight? If the answer is yes, you have eliminated what we call status check meetings, the meetings that we all love, those 30-minute stand-ups where everyone goes around the room asking what are we working on. Track these four metrics monthly, quarterly, yearly, trend them over time. They will tell you exactly where your supply chain is working well and where you need to invest next. Before we wrap up, let me leave you with a few architectural principles that I believe are essential for building a content supply chain that will serve your organization well, not just today but for years to come. Number one, adopt a platform mindset. Number two, standardize before you automate. Number three, embed governance early. Don't build the supply chain first and then try to bolt on access controls, approve workflows, and rights management. This is like building a house and then trying to add the plumbing. Number four, measure continuously. Instrument the supply chain with the KPIs we just talked about so you can improve ROI to your stakeholders and know exactly where to optimize next. Without measurement, you're just flying blind and you cannot really justify the next round of investment. Now, I guess the final recap of the takeaways for everything that we have discussed so far. First, integrate end-to-end. A connected content supply chain removes friction at every handoff. The more you eliminate manual steps between planning, creation, governance, and distribution, and the faster and more reliable your content operations become. Second, let AI do the heavy lifting. Automation doesn't mean losing control. It means redirecting human effort from repetitive tasks to strategic and creative work. Third, govern to enable speed. Fourth, measure to improve. Track your KPIs and use the data to guide your optimization roadmap. Then I would also like to take a quick moment to talk about some questions. Like, what are the key components required to build an AI-powered content supply chain using DAM ecosystems? The essential components obviously are work management layer for structured intake and planning, a centralized asset repository, an automated rendition engine, and then a governed distribution channel, and then embedded AI capability spanning smart tagging, intelligent recommendations, and governance automation. These must operate as a deeply integrated platform where each stage hands off the next one automatically. And then I guess the other frequently asked question, how can organizations balance automation, governance, and scalability while improving production efficiency? This really comes from embedding governance directly into automated workflows rather than treating this as a separate gate. Sorry. Moving on to the final slide. Thank you very much for your time and attention today. I hope this session has given you a clear picture of what an AI-powered content supply chain looks like, why it matters, and most importantly, some concrete ideas you can take back to your organization. Thank you.